I guess I can call it, I guess I'll call it a team now. And also brought on 2 admin in the last like month. So I went from being pretty much an individual with a transaction coordinator for the last 5 years to now 3 other people with me. So I'm super excited about that. And we are doing a lot and 10xing things. So if you have questions throughout this, happy to answer them. And then I think there should be plenty of time at the end for additional questions, because there are always a lot of questions about as we get into the events and the details and how to get executed. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We're excited to have you.
So let me share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see it. Because I do have, I'm always terrible sharing Canva presentations, but I'm gonna give it a shot. And all right. Well, I'm going to share it this way. Okay. So I will put the link in the chat for this. The download has a list of 101 micro event ideas. So I'll send that to Sarah and put it in the chat as well, so that if anyone wants that, or I can send it to your team leader too. So whatever is easiest for you. But just since that's on the first slide. So I am curious, who here has had, I'm sure you've had plenty of targeted ads in your social media feeds over the last several days, or even earlier today. Does anyone remember a specific one that they've seen or gotten that's popped up recently? Mine was basically a retreat for professional women in like Costa Rica. And it included sort of some leadership things and personal development. And I literally looked at it and was like, they're combining every single thing that I'm interested in one thing. Like how did they, know to target me with this? So did anyone have anything like that recently? I know it's hard when we're like kind of hybrid here, so.
Be interactive.
Exactly, yes.
Like anything weight loss.
Oh my God, I'm getting so many of those, yes.
Ours is dog food and dog treats.
I love it. Well, they've found your interests, and that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, is basically attracting people to you that have the same interests that you do and that you really love working with. So because it's February and because we are about to go to family reunion, I was thinking back to 2020 when can you see my screen? Sorry. I keep this isn't the problem with the Zoom and Canva screen sharing. Okay. So looking back at 2020 family reunion, I went to family reunion in 2020 in Dallas with 0 under contract. I was really stressed because 2019 had been a pretty decent year. I got started in real estate in 2016, moved to KW in 2018. But I flew to Dallas with some friends, really didn't know anyone in KW outside of my market center. So hung out with them the whole time, which was great. But it really stood out to me because I remember having nothing under contract. I had a few things in the pipeline, but I know because of, the timing of lockdown, my first deal went under contract like March 12th. It closed April 11th of 2020. So if your year is starting out slow, I know exactly how that goes. And everything that we're going to talk about today, I had started in place prior to then. So it was kind of already rolling. But there was things that got more consistent for me during 2020. So I ended 2020 with 40 units, about 20 to 25 million in volume. And I was the #1 individual agent for the entire region that year. So even if you're starting out a little slower than you'd like, there's still plenty of time to turn it around and, reach your goals for this year. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about is trying to figure out how you can basically go small to get big and to achieve everything that you're wanting to do. So I started thinking about this a lot in 2018. So I started in real estate in 2016, switched over to KW in 2018, and probably the middle, like around 4th of July in 2018, I was working an open house and someone came in, her name is Kari, and she was wearing like the same Rothy's that I had like a Longchamp bag. We just hit it off immediately. She was in town from San Francisco looking at places with her sister because she was transferring for a job relocation to Chicago and just kind of checking out areas. So we met later that week at her office, again, kind of like almost wearing the same outfit. It was just one of those clients that I really hit it off with right at the beginning. And now we literally travel together. We're good friends. And I remember later that year, after she had, gone under contract and closed the deal, moved to Chicago, I was setting my goals for the following year. And I realized I don't need to meet everyone in Chicago. I just want to work with people that I like and that I want to be friends with. And it just makes the job so much more interesting if we can do it in a way that, appeal is relevant to us and is with people that we enjoy. So I decided that instead of trying to reach everyone, I was just going to try to meet 30 women exactly like Kari. So wasn't going to, work every open house in Chicago. I was just going to try and find 30 women exactly like Kari. And so that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Trying to help you identify the people who you want to work with and find ways that you can connect with them organically and authentically in doing things that you already love to do. So I'm not talking about, any NAR violations. We work with everyone, but the goal of this is similar to those ads that you're seeing all over Instagram, is how can we attract the people that we want to work with and, just bring them to us in a way that's super organic. So this is the concept of the smallest viable audience. James Shaw had Seth Godin on his Inspire group this week, and it was amazing, but I have loved this quote for years. It's basically what is the smallest group of people that we can work with so that we create this sort of tribe of people that is telling everyone they know about us. So a good example of this is I have worked with several women in one book club. So they're all in their early 30s. They all went to the same school that I did, but like 10 years after me. And I worked with one of them because I had a connection with her, and then she ended up telling all of her friends, and now they come to all my events. They're one group of my raving fans. So and they are part of this ideal client that I identified early on that was, the type of person that I really enjoyed working with. So I want you to think about, or does anyone know, if you're looking back at 2023, you can probably think of all the people that you did not enjoy working with. So maybe think of that first, but then beyond that, who did you really love working with? Was there one person where you were like, okay, if I had 30 of them, this job would be so much fun? It's probably not, 30-year-old professional women for you. Maybe it's someone with dogs, or like Sarah relocating to the area, or families that just need more space, seniors that need to go into, independent living, or just downsizers who want to travel and have more flexibility. So does anyone have a client that they loved working with, that they, can already picture, like this idea is already resonating, and you know exactly who that would be? Maybe dog. Someone mentioned dog. They're getting a lot of ads for dog treats. So I'm guessing you work with a lot of people who also have dogs.
Go meet at the dog park. Go hang out at the dog park.
Exactly, yes. Well, we're gonna talk about that. So in 2019, I started organizing events for professional women who were in their like 28 to 34, a little bit younger than me, single professional women who typically work in tech, advertising, some law, because I have a law background, consulting, the types of jobs that a lot of my past clients have. So I really looked at my database of my friends and clients and who I loved working with and thought about everything that they had in common. So I literally wrote out like, where do they shop? What do they do for fun? And you know, what neighborhoods do they live in? What does their income look like? I wrote out an avatar of my ideal client and named it after a real person, Kari, because she, you know, was not only did she have a great job and, you know, was moving to an area that I worked in a lot and we had a lot in common, but she also was easy to work with. She knew what she wanted. She even, you know, she's type A, like a lot of my clients, but not like, you know, some people can be like annoying type A. She wasn't. So really, like, I got super clear on what I wanted that to look like. And then I decided, how can I meet more people exactly like her? So that is how the events originated. At that time, I started doing nail events at kind of a trendy nail salon and just invited that, you know, the group of women who were in their 30s and asked them to start bringing their friends. It was very organic at the time. I just thought about things that I thought sounded fun, you know, started inviting people and would get probably one a quarter on the books. And it gave me a reason to reach out to my database. So, which also, you know, at the time and up until recently was just on a spreadsheet. So the events helped me kind of like put something on the calendar and then forced me to reach out to people because it was already booked. So, so think about with that ideal client, people you meet at the dog park or families that you know from school or church or just the neighborhood. What are some of the things beyond those basics of where they live and you know what they all have in common with each other? What do they do for fun? What are the events that they enjoy? What's their biggest problem? Like, is it they don't have enough space or they want a yard for their dog, or maybe they're just renting and they want something to show for like all the hard work that they've put into it. So, and what did you like about working with them? And then continue thinking through things that tie them even more together. And right now, we're all kind of struggling with low inventory, and people are, you know, staying put a little bit longer because they have a super low interest rate. But there are groups of people who need to move. So, who are those that like have, you know, maybe it's the downsizers that just can pay cash and can compete in the, you know, crazy market, or first-time home buyers where their rent is going up. So getting even more strategic to those people that you like working with, but be within those groups who have some motivation right now. So for me, I still have that first ideal client. So those single professional women, 28 to 34, type A, you know, have a great job, live in the city. They want to be close to yoga studios and coffee shops and things to do. And over the last few years, I realized I had a second ideal client, and that is that same person 4 or 5 years later. Now they are probably married or in a partnership, have a dog or kid or even two, and that original condo is just too small for them. So so now my ideal clients are those first-time home buyers who are primarily women, and then upsizers who are basically women and families. So Your ideal client is going to evolve, but I have been super strategic about right now, it's mostly first-time homebuyers who are looking to move. So a lot more of my events within those two categories have been targeted at kind of the more like 30-year-old range, because within my two ideal clients, I'm trying to, do things that are going to appeal to the ones who are more looking to move right now. So and upsizers, I think, are starting to get there. They're just feeling too cooped up. But there's a lot of other ways to do this beyond kind of the traditional ones within real estate. So picking a profession, maybe you used to be a teacher. I know a lot of people, going into teachers' lounges and doing a little market update because they used to work there or they're subbing part-time. So think about who's already in your network and what are the things that groups that you're already engaging with. And it could also be like your farm area, your geographic farm area. So now that you've identified that group, how can you connect with them super strategically in a way that's basically free? So this is getting involved with those groups that already exist. So if you have kids and you're really involved in the school community and upsizing clients are your ideal client, how can you become kind of like the mayor of that school community by being the one who's at every event, who's organizing, the PTA or volunteer activities, so that you become known within that one community as not necessarily even the go-to realtor of choice at first, but just everyone sees you there everywhere as someone giving back to that community. So if it's not school, this could be within your running club or in your gym, at the dog park. All of these, just thinking about what interests do you have, because they probably align with your ideal clients, and how can you meet more people and get really involved in certain organizations that that where there's a lot of people that do that. Another great example of this is when Sarah and I were talking yesterday, she reminded me of someone who was really into the Cleveland Browns. He lives in New Hampshire and didn't have a huge network there, but he decided he wanted to find a bunch of Cleveland Browns fans. And if you're familiar at all with football, you know that Cleveland fans are rabid. My cousin, who's a Cleveland Browns fan, lives in Chicago, and she goes to the one Cleveland bar in Chicago for every Browns game. So she's built a huge network here. And Chris in New Hampshire did the same thing. He just would go to every game watch. And if there wasn't one planned, he just kind of became the facilitator. He wasn't buying drinks for everyone. He just became known as like the one who was helping organize these events, giving back. And so, then people did start connecting him with real estate, because he just showed up to everything, and was really helping the community of Cleveland Browns fans in New Hampshire. So once you're involved in that community and know who the people, that you want to strategically connect with, you want to try and get them to your own events. So kind of like breaking them out of that school PTA environment and off into something that you're more the facilitator of. So this would be, again, kind of like strategic socializing, micro events. And then we're not really going to talk about the other 6 types of events, but for certain types of clients, seminars are a great idea. And then community events and online giveaways are probably going to be part of your overall touch campaign for your whole database. But when we're thinking about these kind of like ideal clients and connecting with them more, I think these first 2 types of events can be done in a super affordable way. So strategic socializing, this is, again, something where you are basically the facilitator or the organizer. So organizing a group of friends to just try out a new dog park, or I think there's one in Atlanta actually, and there's one opening in Chicago, but there's an indoor dog park, like an indoor dog playground thing, which I think sounds so fun. And you, similar to like a kid's play date, you don't have to pay everyone's admission. In this case, for strategic socializing, this is something you could do like several times a month, but it just looks like texting your dog park friends, hey, I've been wanting to check out this new indoor dog playground. It looks like they're doing something here, or there's a, they're open on Sunday at noon. Any interest in meeting there? So, or, what does your week look like? So you're really just setting up a play date for your dogs or kids, or organizing a girls' night to go see the Barbie movie, organizing a pickleball kind of mix, like not even mixer, but for people to just go play a pickleball match. One way that I've done this is, there are, like, around the holidays near my sister's house, they have a historic house walk, and tickets are like $25, I think. So we just texted a group of her friends saying, hey, we're gonna have like wine and cheese at Mary Kate's place afterwards. Anyone interested in checking out the house walk? Here's the link for tickets. So it doesn't really cost you anything if you're hosting something at your house, or just kind of being the facilitator. I also did this for around Halloween, like a zoo. It was like a haunted zoo tour. It was super fun. But I ended up buying 10 tickets and then texted everyone like, hey, I just got a group of tickets for these. Like, are you available this night? Tickets are $25 each. Can you Venmo me? And it's thinking about how you would organize a group of your friends. And the goal of this is to, yes, get those people that maybe you've met at a school event, but haven't really connected with, out into something that it's based around an activity. So you're not, it gives you something to talk about when there's, a little bit more of a structure. But you can text them and say, hey, do you want, like if you asked 2 or 3 people to join you, and then they brought a couple friends, now all of a sudden you have 6 people from, the school group, and you're all just kind of getting together. Sarah, did you have a question?
Yes. So what if you don't have, and maybe you already said this and I misheard it or didn't hear it, but what if you don't have that many friends? How do you reach people that are maybe outside of your network? I guess through other people in your database, or is this something you send? What if you don't know your database that well? So like, I don't know who in my database might be into pickleball, but I'm trying to get a group together. How would you do that? If you're like, I can't think of 5 people to invite to pickleball from my sphere.
I think, well, I would just pick 5 of your like favorite past clients and invite them to pickleball, whether they want to do pickleball or not, because I think pickleball is like easy enough. I mean, I actually haven't played, but I want to try. Like, if you set it up as like a beginner, like, let's just check it out, even though I know that you do know how to play. But maybe for something like, hey, I've been thinking about checking out this candle making workshop, or like a new boutique. Want to meet me here. So I think I would say pinpoint the people you want to connect with, and then find an activity around that in some cases. So so for yours, I think, yeah, because you don't necessarily know but you probably know if they have a dog.
Sure.
So you could, do it around that. But so I guess it could come either way, like you picking the activity first and then finding people that want to do that, or thinking about like so the girls who are in this book club that, I've helped a lot of them. I sometimes am thinking like, okay, I haven't really connected with them recently. Why don't I text the 2 or 3 that I know better and see if they want to get a blow dry, and then if they want to bring 2 friends. So I think about people who are connected to each other sometimes, and then kind of brainstorm an activity. So sometimes I either see the people and I think of an idea, or I see the idea and then I think of the people. So, and okay, so the next one is a little bit very similar, but this is where you are paying, and this is more of what I think of as an event. So I think where people can get a little bit just intimidated by the idea of events is thinking that it needs to be 100-person client event. So micro events are a great way to just kind of get into events without it being a huge, expensive 100-person ordeal. So it's very similar to the strategic socializing in that a lot of times I see an activity and I'm like, oh, that would make a great micro event. But I always have those kind of like 2 ideal clients in mind. So thinking about, what would those professional women enjoy, or what would be something that would be great for families. So I've done basically all of these, except I haven't done axe throwing, which that sounds really fun. But for micro events, these go to, and I'm going to talk about how I organize my database in a few minutes. The micro events typically have 10 to 40 people, usually more like 25-ish. I'm doing one next week. It's a DIY, like make your own facial scrub at a like organic boutique that they have a workshop where you make your own facial scrub. It's super fun. And for these, I typically just bring in like a cheese plate. I keep it super simple. It's all based around the activity. So I figure out if it's going to be about 25 people, I would probably invite 100 to 150 and really encourage them to bring their friends. So micro events are typically for the A-list of clients. So who are, of those clients that you really enjoyed working with, who are kind of like the past clients and VIPs that have given you a referral in the last 12 months. So I like to think of this as, for those, again, kind of like that book club, they're some of my A-list. So, if I wanted to do like a micro event for that A-list group, I would start thinking about, okay, first of all, who do I want to invite? What ideas do I have around a different type of activity? So do I want to invite professional women? Do I want to invite a family? And then I'll start thinking about what is a kind of activity of value or something that they can't really facilitate or just aren't likely to do on their own. So I think that's what makes these great events, because I think looking at this list, you're kind of like, oh, candle making, that sounds fun, but you wouldn't do that on your own. So what's something that you can be kind of the organizer and facilitator again, of something that people within that group of ideal clients is going to look at and say, like, that sounds really fun. I've been wanting to do that. I saw it on Instagram or whatever. And I'm happy to like bring a friend. And so my goal for these events is to really it's a touch to those A and B list clients, but it's also meeting their friends. So once, like with the ideal clients, my goal is to really like connect with my database of ideal clients, but build that database with people exactly like the people that I want to be working with. So, how this all comes together. So this is my event list from last year. So now I have the ideal clients, which are professional women in the city, those upsizers, so families, city families. And then I'm also doing events, these same events, about 45 minutes to an hour away in the suburbs. So now it's almost like I have 4 types of ideal clients, kind of 3. But thing that ties them all together are women and families. So last year I ended up doing 18 events for women and families, and they were all about 25 people, I would say. Some were a little bit smaller. The yoga and vision boarding, the ones in the suburbs were at, I think almost all of these were at the same yoga boutique that I have kind of partnered with. Yeah, and then a lot of the like mixology ones were at a boutique that I partnered with in the city. So looking through these, you can kind of see the thread of women and families throughout.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So when you are looking to host these at other like small local businesses, what do those conversations look like? Like if you're a newer agent and you want to go down this path, like how do you approach that?
yeah. So they are people that I have a pretty good relationship with. And so I've approached that by building that relationship first before, asking to use their venue. So with the yoga studio, she's never been a past client. I did know her through, I guess we actually went to the same high school, but I just reconnected with her in the past like 2 years. And she, I ended up meeting her for coffee and just talking about like both being small business owners. I typically kind of started off by saying like, I love working with women owned. When I'm kind of setting the appointment for coffee, I love working with women owned businesses. I just would love to learn more about your business and see how maybe we can help each other. And then, as we're kind of talking about our businesses, I go into how many events I do and end up they become like brainstorming sessions on what events we could typically partner on. So a lot of the ones, I think, yeah, in the ones for the women in the city, the terrarium workshop and the wreath making were at a gifting studio that I work with a lot. So I use them for all my closing gifts. So when I've been networking just within like the chamber and with other small business owners, instead of saying, who do you know? So at my chamber, the chamber has a women's group, and the women's group meets like one Thursday a month. So everyone kind of goes around in a circle and introduces themselves, and I'm often the only realtor there, but when I'm not, I notice a little bit of a difference between what I say and what they say. So I always in these networking situations say, I love supporting the community and love supporting other women-owned businesses. I do a ton of local events with other local women-owned businesses. And the goal of these is just to build community within our area and to support these other businesses. So, when kind of we're going around the circle and the other agent is like, oh, I'm looking for people who are ready to buy or sell. A lot of these other small business owners aren't going to know that right off the bat. It's not something that they can provide. But, when that open networking starts, a lot of people will come up and say like, oh, I am always looking to host other events in my studio. Or, so if you're newer and just starting out, I would think about the businesses that you're already supporting and have a connection with just through your neighborhood or through your network. And instead of, your touch calls asking kind of just a general care call or asking who they might know to buy and sell real estate, it could be, I just am looking to, grow my relationships with other small businesses and see how we can help each other. And then you can talk about this event strategy. Because what I've found is that people who get events like are really into it. So either like lenders and insurance people, and other small businesses, either they get the strategy or they don't, and I can like pick like I know right away if they do. So, so yeah, just kind of like grabbing coffee and building that relationship first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I think that hits on the main things that I keep in mind for micro events are what is something that I know that my clients are going to find super interesting. So all of these craft ones, like women in their 30s, 40s, 50, any age, women just love doing a craft that they're not paying for and that's not at their house. So any craft event is super popular. So finding something of value that they're going to like think looks really interesting and want to come to. And then the other key is finding a free venue. So partnering with these local businesses that I'm already supporting to offer their business. I've hosted a lot of events, like I'm doing a magician one in my office. I've done some photo events in my office. So just kind of getting a little bit creative around how you can cut out the cost of like a room rental fee, could be hundreds of dollars for 2 hours. So if you can remove that cost, then the events get a lot more affordable. So how does this look in your database? So going back to like, what's your goal for the year? The new or like current MREA research says that the average database yields 6.6 the number of 6.6% number of transactions. So if you are looking to do 20 units this year, you would need about 300, I think it's 350 people in your database. So, or maybe it's 300, sorry, I did this math earlier. And so to figure out how many people you would want in your database to reach your goal, take the number of your goal, maybe it's 20, and divide by 0.066. And so for most people, your database is actually bigger than what you need. You're just not reaching the right number of people. So, or the right people in the right consistency and in the right way. For example, like I have 2,500 people in my database, and I'm doing a big database project now because I did 40 units last year. And I realized that I'm really talking mostly to like 600 people within that database. And 600 times 6% is about 40. So like the 600 that I'm talking to most specifically did yield basically the average. But why am I wasting time on all these other people who either don't live in Chicago or I don't want to work with? So I'm now getting super specific on, I only want to talk to people who live in Chicago, who I actually want to work with, and who kind of are close-ish to that profile of an ideal client. So I'm not removing them from my database, but I'm re-tagging everyone as what either sphere of influence local or sphere of influence out of town. The other ones that I'm not really talking to are D-list, who are like people who are local and worked with someone else, or just like we're really terrible to work with. I'm not gonna take them off of any event invitations or anything like that. So within that SOI local, I'm tagging everyone as A-list, which is VIPs. So someone who's been a client in the past 12 months, they have been a client multiple times, or they've sent a referral in the last 12 months. B-list are all those like past clients or friends who just haven't really done much in the last 12 months, but I still want them to get like most of the event invitations. And then C-list is everyone who, attended an open house, came to an event recently, got on my list somehow. And I believe still lives in Chicago. So I'm tagging everyone as who I know is local to Chicago, it's A, B, or C. And then I'm also tagging them, really the A and B, because I know them, as women. The men are getting tagged as co-ed because they would get invited to co-ed events. So these additional SOI local tags are what type of events they're gonna get invited to. So in command, I can choose like women, 30s, attorney, if I wanted to reach all the attorneys who are women in my database and invite them to an attorney event, or just women, and I do host some women attorney events. If I wanted to invite everyone who has a kid to an event, I would just pull that SOI tag, or moms, I would pull women and kid. So what's great about command is you can like cross pull anyone who has multiple of these additional tags. So what that would look like is I would pull someone who is tagged A-list women 40s and invite them to this scrub event. So for the micro events, my goal is to invite that A and B list more really focus the micro events on those A and B lists. So next slide shows this a little bit better. So my 101 touch plan is based on as many touches, like the full 101, to that SOI local. But really focused on those VIPs and past clients. So that group is going to get 2 to 3 emails a month, quarterly magazine, postcards. So they're going to get everything, and they're going to get invited to all of the events. So anyone tagged as A-list is going to get really 100 touches, primarily based around these events. And then C-list is going to get all the same emails because we have their mailing address. They're going to get the quarterly magazine. So they're still going to get all of this stuff, but they're not going to be invited to quite as many micro events. So again, C-list is kind of like the people who maybe came to an event, but haven't really done anything since. So they're going to get invited to the larger events that I'm not paying per person, but they're not going to get invited to like a wreath event where, it is $75 a person. And then those SOI out of town, they're still in the database, they're still getting emails, but they're not getting any event invitations, and they're not filling their inbox with things that just aren't relevant to them. So the goal for all of this is to be really focusing the micro events on that A and B list in order to like get those, if your goal is to have 20 units, find 300 people who are in that A, B, or C list, and then start moving them. If they're a C, hopefully they now come to 2 events and they get moved to a B list. And then they start coming to more events and become a client and move to the A list. So the goal is to just keep moving them from like tier to tier to the point where they eventually become a client. I feel like I didn't explain that super well. So what questions do you have on that?
I think I have a question about the magazine. So is that like a Remind Media magazine, or is it more like a newsletter? Like, what does that entail?
So it's not the Remind one. I designed it on Canva, and it's like 2 client stories, a vendor profile, a market update, and just some sort of like local like event calendar type things or recaps of our events. So it's basically a newsletter.
Okay.
A lot of the content between like social media and these emails all gets repurposed. So it's like if we have something in an email, it's going to be on social media. It's also going to be on the quarterly magazine. But it's really, the emails are focused on client stories, like market update, and then a lot of event invitations as well. So here's the steps for a successful micro event. I keep these super, super simple. So this would be for a photo event. I think the photo events do super well. Someone in my office just did a headshot event, which I haven't done in a long time, but I love that idea. Like photo events are great because it's something of value that people, you know, would have to pay hundreds of dollars to do on their own, even around the holidays, like a family 15-minute family photo shoot. I know that photographers charge like $300 for that. So if you're doing a family photo event or a dog photo event or a Valentine's Day photo event or a headshot, there's any number of photo events that you could do any time of the year. So the first thing that you'd need to do would be find an affordable photographer. So mine charges by the hour and I get all of the digital files. So and I can usually fit like 6 to 8 families in an hour because getting them in and out. And each family ends up with about 15 images. So you're when it comes to kind of finding a photographer, it's similar to finding a free venue. You will have to do a little bit of networking or looking on social media. The chamber could be a great opportunity as well. I was at a chamber event last night and there were a few photographers there. So you'll have to kind of like network with them and find out who would be interested in partnering on something like this. It likely will be a newer photographer who wants to build their book of business, because hopefully they'll charge you. I think mine is up to like $350 an hour, but he started a little bit less. So it's still pretty affordable though for like a 3-hour event. I like Sundays for micro events. I'm doing a magician in March and it's going to be like a late Sunday morning in the office again. So something like kids have so many activities right now, it's hard to find a time that families are going to be available, but Sunday mornings for the family events are great. I would say I have like pivoted a little bit towards more of like the mom and women events instead of the full family events, because it seems like kids are just like extremely overscheduled right now. So for the women's events, I like a Wednesday or Thursday. We actually canceled something for tomorrow night that I was partnering with the yoga studio in the suburbs for. They had already planned an event for tomorrow night, and I came in a little bit late and offered to help and offer it to my sphere. They were originally charging $50 a ticket. I offered to cover some of the costs and bring it down to $20 a ticket, but we only had a handful of people sign up. And so it just made me realize like Friday nights are tough and people really want free. So it was a good kind of experiment, but didn't end up like Friday just ended up being tough. I, for a long time, have basically assigned, instead of like asking, lenders for a specific dollar amount, something that worked really well, especially early on, was asking them like, hey, can you just bring your wine? I'm expecting 25 people. And they, can spend however much they feel fit. I think for them, it almost feels a little bit easier and less expensive than someone asking for like $500 or whatever the event cost is. So I've also just asked the lender to find a food truck if we were doing something outside, or so like kind of assigning a partner who gets the events to do specific tasks and then they pay the bill directly makes it a little bit easier. So that's the planning. I would say about 6 weeks out, 2 to 3 weeks out, create an Eventbrite link. And I guess before I set the date, I reach out to some of those core people. So if I'm envisioning women in their 30s coming, I'll reach out to the girls in that book club, a couple of them, and just say, hey, does this date work for you? So that I have a sense that like, if I'm expecting 12 people, at least 3 the date works for, and then I'll go and like confirm the date and invite everyone else. So getting that core group of people is really helpful. So then, once I've settled the date, invited that core group, confirmed them, then I'll send the invite out to that full VIP or A list. So I use the Reach app, which is awesome. And it lets you text from your own phone number. You can create the message and text it to a list of 100 people in like 20 minutes. So that's touch number 1 is texting the link out. The touch number 2 is I email it to that usually A and B list. Touch 3, if it's not full with the A and B list, I'll send it to the C list or sometimes the whole database through like MailChimp or Flowdesk. And then touch 4 would be sending a reminder email to everyone who has RSVP, which is really helpful because there's can be a huge drop rate. So putting that reminder email 4 or 5 days in advance, like, hey, we have a wait list, or especially for things like a wreath event where you're paying kind of a lot per person, the drop rate is insanely annoying. So sending a confirmation email out and like guilting them into either attending or canceling is really helpful. I've run into that a lot, and it's a problem that everyone faces when planning events, but I would plan I typically over schedule the events or oversell them a little bit by 2 or 3 people because I just know that so many people are going to drop out. And I also try with someone like a wreath event or a scrub event where I'm paying per person to not confirm the number with the vendor until the day of. So trying to put all these little safety nets in place so I'm not paying for a bunch of people that don't show up. And then the final thing is after the event, sending like a thank you text or email to everyone. So putting it all together, I would really recommend thinking about who's your ideal client and then who's most motivated to move in this market. So maybe it's first-time home buyers or downsizers. What can you do to connect with more of them this month? And then how can you create your own events that's going to like just deepen the relationship? So if you don't have a lot of people, those people in your database, maybe even if you only have 2 or 3, an event isn't 20 people. It can be just 4 people going to go play pickleball or going to the dog park. So, but what combination of these can you do so that you're consistently touching your database in the next 90 days? So what questions do you have?
Don't be shy.
Yes, and I will send a copy of the event list, the micro event list.
Okay, you can send it to Sarah and she can forward it to me if you have her email address.
Perfect. Yes.
Do you do any events that you invite everyone to?
There are some, so I do a couple giveaways that go to the full database. And then, so I usually do about 2 giveaways a year. There are some events like I do a kids musician that it has kind of a cult following and it's not super expensive. So things where it's not capped at the number of attendees or I'm not paying per person typically will go to the full database, but it's more intended for like the families or women. So I don't have many that are more like generic, like appeal to anyone. The one that I used to do that went to like all my past clients and was kind of like a past client VIP was a boat cruise, and that ended up getting really, really expensive. So I've focused on these ones where the activity is like typically $500. For giveaways, I am doing this past couple weeks, I did a home organizer giveaway. So they got 5 hours with a home organizer and a $500 gift card to like Container Store. I think it was a Visa gift card, but that they could use to like buy all of the bins that they wanted to work with her. So the giveaways also, I personally think it needs to be something really valuable to that ideal client. So I'm always thinking about like, what do these women really want? Or what do these dog owners or, you know, someone relocating to the area? Like, it's become kind of second nature to me to really be thinking about who's the target audience and what's really going to help them. Who has like an ideal client, or is, I think that can be the part. I think it's really foundational, but I think it's something that people really struggle with. So is anyone not sure who would be a great, you know, like who should they be connecting with? Is anyone struggling with that? You know, I also think the other thing, for teams, I think this is really valuable as well, because it can help every person on the team find their own niche within the team. So some people are going to be more towards, you know, the parents at their school. Some are going to be more dog owners or couples or, you know, Cleveland Browns fans. So I think as I bring people onto my team, the buyer agent that I just brought on, she has a 4-month-old baby. So this morning she organized coffee. She, you know, was in a mom's group right a couple months ago, and it kind of, they hadn't done much after the holidays. And I was like, oh, you know, that's a great group to connect with and just keep that going. So she kind of facilitated all of them meeting for coffee at a local coffee shop. And there are like 6 women with their babies meeting there this morning. So super, super simple, but now women will start getting invited to our larger like micro events, and she's just building those connections.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'll, because Amy's in here, I'll give a shout out. So during the holidays, her and Doreen, because Amy runs a team here, they did an event at a women's boutique, but it had a lot of holiday stuff. So she invited your sphere. I don't know if it's your whole sphere, but like probably your A's and B's. And they did an event where they could come shopping. They provided the wine and cheese and some chocolates. And it was like a 2-hour window. The store closed specifically for this event, just for her and her clients. And I went because I wanted to experience it, so to share with others. And I think you guys did a great job and had a great turnout. And it was the first time y'all had done that. And I think it was a little unnerving. Like they were like, is anybody going to show up? What's it going to be like? How's it going to go? And I think it's a win-win for everybody. And it's a, you know, independent store owner who's a friend of theirs, and it got to promote her store. You know, I would never have gone there. I've since been back shopping. And so I think people just think out of the box a little bit and don't be afraid to do it, because it really is fruitful and it doesn't cost you a lot to do that.
Yes, I love that. I think the sip and shop is great, especially at something where I did one a few years ago at a boutique that has really terrible hours. They're open from like 12 to 4 on Thursday afternoons. And so all the moms like can't make it there. I'm like, so we were like, oh, I'll give you wine and cheese, and they're going to be open from 7 to 9. Just stop in, open house style. And yeah, it was great. So that's a great example. Hey,
Hey, Meg, do you ever advertise publicly or like in Facebook groups or anything like that to bring in more people?
so the kid musician event is a great example of that. Yes, that one's, some of the partner ones are meant to build my database. So he has a cult following, and part of what I pay him for is to promote it to his cult following of, you know, parents of 2-year-olds in Chicago. And then we did one over the summer. You know, I'm promoting it to my database and he's promoting it to his. 60 families showed up. I brought donuts and coffee, and it was 45 minutes on a Sunday morning. So yeah, I think the micro events are really geared towards my sphere and A and B list, and then some of the larger partner events that I'm not paying per person. So I don't promote any of the ones where I'm paying per person, but the ones where, like at a boutique, the boutique owner could also promote that on her page. So then, and I would do for the kids musician or any type of partner event like that, I have him post the Eventbrite link so that people register in advance. So they think they need a ticket. So I would have at these kid musician events, people coming up to me like with their phone and the ticket on their phone. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I should just check people in to reinforce that they have to do that. But yeah, so that's a great question.
I have a
Awesome.
question. So that.
Yeah.
All back to real estate, right? Like you're hosting these events, that's great. Like they see you, they meet you, maybe you start a relationship with them, but do you advertise it like hosted by X real estate, you know, how do you kind of bring it back to that?
Very gently. I introduce myself at the beginning and say, you know, I'm Meg from Keller Williams and my team name is Heyday Homes. And I have a pop-up sign that says Heyday Homes and there's a few branded things on there, but I just introduce myself and say again, like I love supporting the local community and local women-owned businesses. You know, my goal is always to help bring people together and introduce you to some of my favorite partners. And so then after the fortune is really in the follow-up, they get invited to, you know, they get on the list then and just invited to future events and start seeing more about the team and everything. So they kind of get warmly brought into the fold. I would say if you're just starting out on this and you've never done one, start super small with like something like a pickleball event or going to the dog park. Just start with kind of that strategic socializing of how can I facilitate, you know, text two of my friends, ask them to bring two friends and just get out and do something that I've been wanting to do. There's probably I'm sure there are tons of, you know, events and even Galentine's things next week that are selling tickets. You know, you could text like, hey, I thought this looked fun. Anyone interested in going? So, you know, it doesn't have to be, again, like something that you're planning. You can just facilitate a group going to something and get people together and start that way. So I will send Sarah that list. You know, would love to connect with anyone. Instagram, I'm at Meg Chicago, and you'll see my team name and stuff on there too. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to help.
Thank you, Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And I will share, is it okay that I share your slides like with our internal, like all of our agents here? Do you mind if I do that?
Yeah,
And
no problem.
would you also mind sharing, your magazine kind of like / newsletter, like just like a copy of that? So to use as an example?
The better one would be an email newsletter, I think.
Okay, okay.
So for the emails and the magazine, I have like a few different buckets. So it's like real estate's one bucket, client stories, community events, and then just kind of like whatever I'm interested in personally. So each email has like something about real estate and then something about the community. So it usually has two of those buckets in each email.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. I think for a lot of people, just like a starting off point and seeing something visually just really helps. So that would be great. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.